John, we got a friend. We have Michael Kay stopping by again to join us on the show.
Yeah, that's always great. Terrific guest. Obviously, a very popular Yankee broadcaster, does a great job, and I'm anxious to talk to him. It's going to be a little bit of a therapy session, I think. A lot of Yankee talk. We're going to do Yankee talk too in our session. If you are a Met fan, we're going to give that a couple minutes. We have a thought on them too, but it's 99% Yankee Day because they're the team of the moment right now. Not the good team of the moment, but the team to talk about.
What else can I say, John? You mentioned everything we're doing. You and I are going to talk the Yankees. We're going to talk the Yankees with Michael Kay. We'll do a little Met talk at the end of that first block. Hey, I'll mention we'll play hit and error at the end. Stick around for that and stick around for the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. John, nothing really changed from the last time we talked to this time. The Yankees were bad a week ago. They were bad the week before that, and they're bad this week also. It's over. We're getting close to 4 weeks of them as the worst team in baseball. Just to frame it, through June 14th, 50-22 plus 144 run differential, best record in the major league. Since then, 5-16 minus 35, the worst team in the major leagues. And John, the worst team, and deservedly, they're not doing anything well on the field. And the way they're playing with lack of intention, that doesn't look very good either. So take it wherever you want for what these last 21 games have looked like, which, by the way, has not only dropped them out of first place in the AL East, but we're talking about now they're just, four up on the Red Sox in the loss column. They're starting to get caught. I mean, they could potentially fall out of the playoffs if they keep playing like this, and it would be a real nightmare if it's the Astros who move past them.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Nothing has changed except for one thing. It's another week of this. I mean, I think we have to ask the question right now. Aaron Boone is a great front runner, but once they get in a hole, they take a long time to get out of that hole. This is too long now. We are going on fourth week of terribleness, and it's shocking. I mean, I understand they have some injuries, not an excuse, right? I mean, Rizzo's out. Rice has actually been better than Rizzo was, right? Obviously, they've lost Stanton. That's not a shocker at this point, but
their general manager told us they'd lose Stanton.
Right. No, nobody can be surprised about that. He was good, and they needed him because they were a two-man team or a three-man team. Now they're a two-man team, and now we'll give Rice credit. We'll say 2.5-man team, maybe a three-man team. He's been really good, but on the rotation to see what's gone with the pitching. Their pitching has been the worst. The only debate right now is, are they 5-16 or 6-17? I mean, I guess I wrote 5-15 in the paper the other day. It was changed to 6-16. I'm not sure which is worse. Either way, it's 10 games under, now 11 games under. I mean, the pitching was the best in baseball. It's been the worst lately. To see what's gone on with Rodon, incredible. Stroman has gone down. Obviously, Heel has gone down. A couple nights ago was encouraging, as I noted, but they've been terrible, and it's gone on too long, and this has happened a lot with them. And in 2022, when it happened, there were injuries. There were a ton of injuries, and Judge had to do it by himself. I get it. I don't think they have an excuse right now. It's very worrisome.
John, to your point about that they're not good at pulling themselves up, I try to beat it around in my head. When's the last time that I saw something go from this good with the Yankees to this bad? The comparison I came up with was the 2000 Yankees, right? They were 84-59 and 9 games up, like with 18 games left, and they went 3-15 in 18 games, a minus 89 run differential in those 18 games. They almost blew the lead. But you know who they were? They were the championship Yankees. They kind of took a deep breath, got their act back together in the playoffs, and won a third straight championship and 4 out of 5. To your point, John, with this group of Yankees over the last several years, when they get hit in the jaw, they go down and they don't get up very quickly. It's a bad reflection on everything from team building to who's in the clubhouse to who's coaching and managing it. I think everyone is on the line if this team can't get up.
How about Boone being a little bit more forthcoming? And I get it. I mean, he's a very popular guy with his players, with the bosses, with us generally. I mean, he's got a terrific personality, but I mean, that play, made by Grisham was ridiculous. To just say, "Oh, I get it didn't look good," it was bad. It was a bad play. It wasn't the way it looked. It was bad. That play where DJ LeMahieu didn't really run hard. I think he assumed it was an obvious double play or the second baseman was going to catch it or whatever. He didn't run hard. That's the bottom line. You can't say, "Oh, he did run hard." He didn't. Maybe he didn't see it or whatever, but it feels like he's always covering for these guys, and maybe that's part of the issue. Maybe that is part of why this team does not dig itself out of things. He's got to come out and say, it's not good. Things aren't going well. Something's got to change. We've got to be better. We got to be hustling. Volpe, he's got to know the rules. He's got to run through home. I don't know what he thought. He thought it was a foul ball or what?
Yeah, I think he thought it was a foul ball, but still.
All right, keep running.
Just run. Run.
He was 2 feet away from home plate. He stopped. Yeah. Got to know
John,
the rules.
I'll say this is, if people would like to go back, I didn't like Grisham getting added into the trade. We're up to now 3 non-energetic center fielders. They love this. They love going from Ellsbury to Hicks to Grisham, like the absolute kind of no energy. Is there a player in the sport who should understand the value of taking a ball hit him seriously more than Trent Grisham, who saw a bounce past them hit by Juan Soto during the 2019 postseason, and it knocked the Brewers out of the playoffs, a ball that got by Grisham. Here goes a guy who should absolutely have learned his lesson.
Right, and not only that, learned the lesson, he's got the reminder. Soto keeps trailing him. Whatever team he's on, they put Soto on that team too. Yeah. So, there's no way he could have forgotten it. Even if he wants to put it out of his mind, there's Juan Soto. Obviously, was a single that Soto hit that made a U-turn or whatever. Yeah, you got to be, you can't be so nonchalant. And I agree. He is a very good center. He's very talented in center field. But you can't be playing unless you're Willie Mays. And he's not Willie Mays. He's a guy who's hitting about 180, right? You can't be doing that when you're hitting 180.
You can't be doing that anyway. You got to play baseball technically well. The Yankees get eliminated from the playoffs all the time because the other team plays baseball better than them. And we keep hearing that they're going to work on baseball. They haven't stolen a base in 4 weeks. Meanwhile, it's a freeway on the bases against them. All these nuanced stuff where when they don't have power pitching and power hitting, they look like crap, John. And it's come up again. And I'll just say this on Boone, who I think, again, both of us like a great deal and respect a great deal. If you're going to live in unreality about if your players are taking it seriously and hustling, at some point you lose your credibility. Certainly with the public and with reporters who cover your team regularly. And I think he's on the verge of that. The more problematic thing about how the Yankees play is if you're not fixing it and you're in charge, you're condoning it. There's either fixing it or condoning it. There is no middle ground. And the way Trent Grisham plays, he's going to side saddle one of those balls and look really cool in center. And it's going to clunk off his glove in August or September or October. And you can't go, well, she plays smooth. To me, you're either fixing it or you're condoning it. And we see they haven't fixed it with Gleyber Torres in 5 years.
Yeah, he might be losing his credibility with guys on the team. They all saw what happened with Grisham. Now, I understand they were going to lose that game anyway. It was 8-2 or something like that. But you cannot play like that when you're in the middle of a losing streak and you're hitting 180. I'll allow it from maybe a little bit from Soto or certainly from a Willie Mays or an all-time great, but not if you're hitting below 200. If you've got an OPS plus below 100 and, you're in there due to an injury, you're not even a starting player. You've got to hustle a little bit more than that. And I think at some point the other players are going to say them because there are guys on the team that hustle, right? By the way,
including Soto. Soto runs out every ground ball.
He plays every day. I agree.
Hard.
Runs hard.
I have no, I'm wondering if it's a walkier thing. I didn't watch him enough over the years to know if this is how he played all the time. But the guy who's playing this year, it's obviously he's a great hitter with as good a hitting eye as maybe we've ever seen. But he A, gets on the field, and B, when he's on the field, he has attention and plays hard.
Agreed. There might be somebody who's really old school who doesn't love the bat flips because obviously that takes time, but they come, he knows when the ball's out. If he does that when the ball's not out, then we can hear about it. But yes, he plays every day. He plays hard. Other guys play hard. Normally LeMahieu plays hard, but he made a mistake there. He needed to run that ball because, that double play would not have been turned if he had run hard. It's not good. They're not. They've got to be playing hard. Even if they're not playing well, they got to be playing hard.
John, can I float a theory with you? I think I've written it now. I think I've talked about it in a few different places besides our podcast. And you were there that weekend at Fenway Park when things really started to go wrong. That was like a month ago. To me, when they allowed the 9 stolen bases, it felt like their confidence was hit, like they were exposed at something. And they just haven't been the same team since then. Like almost like it was shown that they weren't paying attention to detail or there was a way to beat them. And it was their kind of one of their nemesis guys in the Red Sox. And they just haven't like played smart or confident since then. I wonder what you think about it.
I would hope that's not the case. I hope you don't lose your confidence based on one game. I mean, obviously it wasn't good. It was kind of shocking to see the Red Sox who have 3 guys who can run, basically 3 very fast guys who can run, steal 9 bases. It's not easy to do. Give them credit. They are playing fantastically. Cora's doing a great job. They're getting the most out of a very young team. Plus Devers, who, by the way, not hurt, not liking that he's not going to the All-Star game. What did he do last night? What did he get, 10 hits with 3 homers or what? I mean, the guy's not hurt, but that's another issue. I don't know if I can ascribe it to that. I was there that day. I remember being annoyed because I had a good early and I had to redo it and write how crummy they were again. That's what it was to me. That should be one game. They should get moved past it. Their record against stealing bases was above average at the time. Nobody else has really been able to do that to them. So, they should have slept it off. If they didn't, it's bad on them.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of this has kind of gone south at the same time. Can I point out 2 things that have concern beyond just this moment, which is where we started in the off season, which is Carlos Rodon up to all of this? Because he's got 4 years left on his contract at about $26 million a year past this year. And the other one I'd ask is just how good is Anthony Volpe? Is he okay? Like a good fielder with some speed. By the way, he has speed, never steals a base. I love all their stolen base guru. We talked about it a lot last year. They're 0 for their last 4 and haven't stolen a base in a month, but like they have a stolen base guru. I love that. It's
Who's that? I don't even know. Who is the guru?
I don't know. Some guy with.
Okay. I didn't even know that. I'm learning on the show. Terrific.
Well, they're the
you
base
know what?
running.
I think you were
they're
right.
the base running guru, and they're the worst
right.
base running team by the metrics in the sport. Anyway, those are 2 things that really stand out to me right now. Rodon, like, what do they do? It's Ed Whitson-ish, like a little bit, and then Volpe. Every shortstop they play against is kind of better than him. Right.
Well, he's good defensively. You were right to move him out of the leadoff spot. I do think he will be able to steal more. He has to get on first base. That's the first issue. He's not hitting. And certainly the home runs are way down as well. I mean, is it possible? We thought that there'd be a big step up in terms of the offense. There really has not been a big step up from last year. Basically about the same, I think, at this point. I have to look at it. The batting average is a little higher. The power is a little bit down. So he's changed a bit, but it's not been necessarily for the better. But in terms of Rodon, it's bad. I mean, that was another one in Boston where it started to go bad, and he's continued to be bad. And his ERA was below 3. Now it's close to 5. They've all gone backward. Stroman's gone backward by a run. Heel has gone backward by a run. It was a run and a half. Had a good outing the other night. I mean, Rodon. He had the best ERA in baseball for over a 2-year stretch before he got here. And there was justification to give him a big contract. I don't know if it needed to be quite that big, but there was justification. There were other teams that were offering even more per year, not that many years. But, right now, that's another major question. That rotation is a question. I mean, a month ago, we could look at it, they're looking at bullpen. It's already pretty good. We can make it even a little bit better. Now they need starters. They need infielders. I mean, how long is LeMahieu going to go on like this? Well, I mean, he's a good defender at third. He can play second. He can play first. He's versatile. But can you go on with a guy who can't hit the ball over the fence at all?
John, you spoke about it. There were teams willing to give Rodon more, but less years. The Yankees keep playing this game of, Hal Steinbrenner down, of being cute and trying to play the luxury tax game and stretching contracts out for the lower annual value. They did that with Aaron Hicks. they still have to pay Aaron Hicks through next year. You like that?
Right.
They gave him 770.
They're
Ooh,
gonna
big deal.
do that with
We kept
Soto.
it to 10 million a year. By the way, they did it with LeMahieu. LeMahieu should have just gotten a 4-year contract. He didn't want to go
Right.
anyplace. Just
No,
give
I
him
know he's
4
got 2
years.
years. We got two more
the-
years to look at
right.
LeMahieu at this point. I mean,
Let's be honest.
The question is he done now? I mean,
right.
we have to ask that question, and what are they going to do about it? It doesn't look like he can hit. I don't know whether it's the feet, the age, whatever. I know you're stretching out the contract. What are they going to have to stretch the Soto deal out to? A 50-year deal to make it palatable? I don't know.
But every time they got cued, it didn't work. You're the Yankees. Just pay the guys what you should pay them for the number of years you want to pay them, and pay some tax, and that's life. John, just really quickly, let's not give short shrift to the Mets. They did make a trade. Phil Maton, they added from the Rays. I kind of like the trade. I look for guys. I think he's a pretty good relief pitcher whose numbers weren't good this year. So I always think if you're pitching to like a 5 and you should be at a 3, you might pitch to a 1 the rest of the year. Whereas if you're pitching to a 1 and if you're really a 3 or 4, you'll pitch worse. I kind of like the potential upside. I went and looked, he started throwing his sinker a lot more 12 outings ago. He has gave up runs.
Yeah.
He's got like a 67% ground ball rate since then. It's one of the best in baseball in just that period. I think it's and here's the bigger thing. For the Mets, it's like a $6 million play. There's cash considerations here. So maybe they get some money back and it isn't. But between the $3 million they owe him and the 110% tax on a Steve Cohen team, that's a $6 million play. So to me, it suggests they're trying to fix it in the moment, but the only reason to try to fix it in the moment is you think you're in it and you want to go for it.
Right. I like that. That was your own analytics, right? If he has a 5-year right now, he'll do 1 for the rest of the year. Sherman.
If you like the pitcher, I would take a shot on Shelby Miller if Detroit would trade him, because his ERA is up high now, but I actually think he's good and all the peripherals are good. So why wouldn't he pitch better?
If you don't want to trade prospects, that may be a way to go. I like the fact that they're quote unquote going for it at the moment. We obviously have 20 days to go before the deadline as we do this. So we will see. Remember last year, they made a trade like they were going for it. Remember this guy, Trevor Gott? He was absolutely brutal. One of the worst pitchers we've ever seen. I don't even remember Chris Flexen, but Trevor Gott was right away. Memorably bad. Oh, right. Okay. It was part of the deal. It was memorably bad for the Mets, and they were going for it at the moment. They switched. I think they made the right move to trade Scherzer and Verlander. We don't have to go over that now. So I'm not guaranteeing that they're going to be a buyer, but I like the fact that they are still willing to spend, that Steve Cohen's still spending money, and that's a lot of money for a half a year of Phil Maton, $6 million. So I'm going to give them credit there. I don't know if he's going to be good. I'm not as confident as you are, Joel, but I just like their heart's in it, and I think it should be. And I hope they continue on this path, because I don't want to see what happened last year again. Again, I think they made the right call last year. They weren't going to do it last year, but this year, as we do this, I think they're 500, but they got a good shot, I think. Their offense is really good. They've hit more runs than anybody over the last 40 games. Nobody saw that coming, right? They're a better team than they started the season, thanks to Vientos. Obviously, JD Martinez didn't start with the team. Nemo's playing great. Lindor is not good in the cold. I think that we've solved the Lindor problem. As soon as it heats up, he's great. And by the way, Nemo, I think they should have been the All-Star, not Pete Alonso. That's another thought.
I wanted Alonso in the.
Absolutely, there's no question about that. But the Mets' heart is in the right place. They're going in the right direction. I like the fact that we gave 2 minutes to the team going in the right direction and 12 minutes to the team that's really stinking. So I think that's the way we should always handle it.
Yeah, the Mets have offense and a long lineup, and because of that, they should go for it. The team that unbelievably suddenly doesn't have a long lineup, just a 2-man lineup pretty much, is the Yankees. We talked a lot about it. We'll talk a lot more with our great friend Michael Kay, who joins us next on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. Look, we always want to have Michael Kay on the show. He's a friend of the show. He's been a friend of John and mine for decades and decades. And we won't tell him about the share in the Hamptons in the mid 80s, Mike, and who was in it and everything. But yes, we go back a very, very long way. Obviously, Michael Kay, the voice of the New York Yankees on Yes, the Michael Kay Show, Monday to Friday, 3 to 6:30. And Mike, it's the right time because It's hard to remember a time where the Yankees have played this badly in this many phases of the game for this long. And by the way, that feels like only half the problem when you throw in how it's going about, where they look inattentive, lackadaisical. So you see every inning, every out, Mike. Take it wherever you want, because you even predate John and I for when you started covering this team in the 80s. What does this look like to Michael Kay?
It looks pretty bad. I mean, it's funny because people on the radio show say, "Well, it's no time to panic," and I don't like to use the word panic, but I will tell you this: it's really a legitimate concern. There's so many areas of the team that have broken down. It's one after the other. It's the starting pitching. It's the bullpen. It's the lineup 4 through 9. And now, to make matters worse, over the last week or so, Judge and Soto have started to slump, which is normal. I mean, everybody goes through the ebbs and flows. So, the one guy carrying the team right now is Ben Rice. So it doesn't look good. I guess you hope that the injured players come back. But remember, when Anthony Rizzo was here, he really wasn't performing that well. So Ben Rice is probably outperforming him. And Stanton was a loss. And obviously, I think the bigger loss was Jason Dominguez, because they had a replacement for the inevitable Stanton injury, and he's out, and he's still not even close. As my iPad dropped, I don't want to mess you up. But, yeah, it's just weird, guys. It happened all of a sudden because they looked so good for the first 2 months of the season, and now they look so bad.
I want to hear more about the Hamptons later, but I am going to follow up on the Yankees now. Aaron Boone, we all love him. He's a terrific guy, incredible personality. When the team's going great, he's going great. His one-loss record is one of the best all time, and he's in his 7th year. But I will say this, and I know a couple of us kind of, I don't want to say we killed him, but we a little bit jabbed that he's a little too, I don't want to say permissive, but a little too kind sometimes publicly when a guy messes up or a guy doesn't hustle. Obviously we've seen the Yankees be great at the beginning of many years and then go into a tailspin. And I don't know, do you think that he needs to be a little tougher? And this could be the cause of when they go in this tailspin, they don't dig themselves out of it as quickly as you think. You don't normally see teams go 50-25 and then be terrible for a month.
Well, I mean, that's a big point of discussion, especially on my show, especially with fans. I think that fans want somebody's butt handed to them on a plate. I mean, they want that raw meat. And I think that the rules of engagement taking the Yankee job is that you're not going to do that. You just can't. You're not going to rip players in public. So I always feel loath to talk about this simply because of the fact, John, we don't know what he's doing behind closed doors. I mean, is he reading them the riot act? I'm not quite sure. But in this day and age, you got to be nice to the players. You just do. I was told the story by a former manager that I know, and he said that he did a press conference after a game, and he was called on the carpet that night and said, listen, you said this about player X, and his wife is really upset. I mean, this is what we're dealing with. So the days of Billy Martin and Earl Weaver not coming back, and as I always say on my radio show, if you got rid of Aaron Boone, John, you're going to get Aaron Boone 2.0. They're not hiring Buck Showalter. They're not hiring Joe Madden. They're not going to go for an old-time manager. They want a manager who is in collaboration with the front office and treats the players very, very nicely.
Mike, I will say this is whenever people suggest that Aaron Boone should go ballistic, I'm like, tell me the manager who does this anymore. You bring up like the Billy Martin thing. There is no Billy Martin or a Weaver world anymore.
There's one.
Ron
Washington. Ron Washington.
And he takes a lot of grief for being it. I just think Aaron Boone has decided I'm not losing my clubhouse or my job by going negative. To me, Mike, there's a subtle difference, though. I used the term in our opening before you came on where I said he's living in unreality. And when you live in unreality, you begin to lose credibility. You can't publicly say Trent Grisham was playing loose. Like that's just, it's nonchalant to the X level. You can't say, like, go back at a reporter and say DJ LeMahieu was hustling. He wasn't. He wasn't running his hardest. At some point, and I realize how tough this is in a social media world. And again, I want to stress, I think Aaron Boone's a good man and a good manager. But you have to find a way to say something is unacceptable where that's the message publicly, and yet you're not trashing your play. You're not going full Ron Washington, to John's point.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and if I could like pull Aaron Boone aside and he would take my advice, I'd say don't put lipstick on a pig. Don't say that a player stinks, but say what Grisham did, which he said the next day was not a good look, and then address it with Grisham. I don't expect him to rip players because I don't think the front office would allow it. I just don't think that's how professional sports are right now. I mean, a guy like Kenny Atkinson got fired by the Nets because he coached them too hard. That's just the bottom line. You're not going to get coaches and managers that do that.
But Mike, I'm sorry, John, can I just say one thing? We usually say that physical errors happen, but when the other stuff happens, that's a reflection on the manager. That's the place where the manager begins to make a difference. And when your players are inattentive or not knowing the rules or just not playing to a concentration level that's acceptable, Aaron Boone has to accept that is a total reflection to me on the manager.
I would agree with you. But the one thing that I'm a little bit nervous, and you have to straddle the line when you do this, they look uninterested, they look dead. And usually when you don't hit, those things happen. The Anthony Volpe play and the subsequent LeMahieu not getting into a rundown, that was a bad look. And then the answer that Anthony Volpe thought it was a foul ball, I mean, it's right in front of you. Maybe he didn't know the rules. I don't know if that's on Aaron Boone to teach Anthony Volpe the rules. This kid plays hard all the time, so it wasn't a lack of hustle. It's strange because I've talked to Aaron Boone a lot, and one time I told him, I said, you know what? Everybody loses their job. Everybody. Casey Stengel lost his job. Joe Torre lost his job. Joe Girardi lost his job. Everybody loses their job. And I think that you're going to want to do it your way because you're going to lose your job. And then afterward, you're going to say, well, why didn't I do it my way? And he looked me right in the eye and said, this is my way. I believe in this. And I believe he does believe in all of the analytics and the working in concert with the front office. That's all something that he buys into. So it's not like he's living a lie. This is the guy he thinks he should be. And it's funny. He's the same guy, Joel, where they got off to this great start, 28 games over 500. And then Stanton gets hurt, and then Rizzo gets hurt, and then the pitching starts to peter out. All of these things, same manager, different result. He was the same motivator then. I just think it's hard to pull out of this when your hitters stop hitting and your pitchers start, they stop pitching, both the bullpen and the rotation. So I don't know what they expect the manager to do. I was talking with a couple of people driving back from the stadium yesterday, and I just said, what happens if they lose every game on this road trip? And they go into the All-Star break. And the Red Sox are breathing down their neck. They're 2 games back in the loss column, and the Yankees are dropping, further and further away from the Orioles. Would the Yankees do anything? And, our consensus was no, because they don't do that. I mean, they used to do it. They don't do it. When they fired a hitting coach in the middle of the season last year, I think that was the first time Brian ever did that. So I don't think they're going to make a move to make a move. I think they want to see if their players get back.
I was going to ask you something else, but I'd like to follow up on what you just said. I don't think they're making a move in season. I think, he's beloved by his bosses. He has an overall excellent track record. That's not happening in season. What if they don't win the World Series? What will it take at the end of this year for them to make a change? If they don't make the playoffs, I assume he's going to be gone. But is there some other level there where you think they'd make the change? They certainly don't have to win the World Series. I don't believe that. I mean, I know that's the mantra, whatever. I don't. That's long gone. What does he have to do to keep his job?
Well, I think that he has to make the playoffs. If he doesn't make the playoffs, I think that he would be forced to make a move. And I also think that if they lost the first round playoff series that they're in, because right now it looks like it's going to be a wild card, I think that might also cost him a job. Where it gets to be a little bit of a debate. Okay, the best of 5. If he loses that, I think if he gets to the ALCS, he's fine. But I think he's in trouble, A, if they don't make the playoffs, and B, if they lose one of the first 2 rounds. But, we'll see. I don't think we could predict anything. Don LaGreca on the radio show yesterday said something interesting. He said they keep saying, World Series or bust, and they haven't done that since 2009, and there's no ramifications. The only person who's lost his job is Joe Girardi, who took the team to the 7th game of the ALCS. They were an inning away from going to the World Series, and he lost his job. That's the only person that's been held accountable. And one thing that I've always said, and I wonder if you guys agree, and I think this is the thing that riles up fans. I don't blame fans for being riled up. They continue to sell the mantra, World Series or bust. That's not the world we live in anymore. It's just not. And as long as you continue to sell that and you don't win the World Series, you are further inflaming a fan base that is sick and tired of it. I don't know how you walk that back, because that was something from George Steinbrenner, not from Hal Steinbrenner, but somehow they've got to distance themselves from that quote, because that's a quote that makes all the fans angry.
You know, Mike, I wonder, just to stay on this, are we burying the lead? Which is, we keep talking about Aaron Boone, but the guy who constructed this team is Brian Cashman and his group. And look, on your show, I'm sure Brian Cashman has been fired 5,000 times by your callers.
Just yesterday.
Since yesterday. And Brian, like even more than Boone, the track record is brilliant. I think, 3-4 weeks ago, you could have made a case for him as executive of the year, right? We were talking a lot about turning Jake Cave into Luis Heel, and Alex Verdugo was playing well, and Stroman, was pitching well, etc. Soto obviously is the big trade there. Luke Weaver on the margins. There was a lot, and there's still a lot to like about what they put together. But ultimately, a team that gets hit in the jaw and doesn't get up reflects, if we're talking about the manager, that's Brian Cashman's manager. If we're talking about a group that can't get up when it gets hit in the jaw, when we talk about a lineup that isn't long, when we talk about a bullpen that suddenly isn't long, this is Brian Cashman's creation. And he's the longest tenured guy in the sport by a lot for a team. And I just wonder, Mike, we're not, I don't think any of us are what we would call irrational people, and that you usually have to talk the irrational off the ledge 5 days a week. Where do you stand on Brian?
I think Brian stays as the Yankee GM until he retires, until he decides to step away. I think that Hal has great trust in him. And also the bottom line is they are a successful organization. They just haven't won a World Series since 2009. And they're a successful business, Joel. The last 15 games at Yankee Stadium, there have been 40,000 more people every single game. This last homestand, I think, was almost all sellouts. So the fans are there. Obviously, they are making, money as an organization, although I don't know their books. So I think as long as he puts a representative team on the field, then I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be fine even if he doesn't. Like, if for somehow the Yankees drop out of the playoffs this year, I still think he's back. I don't think Boone is, but I still think Brian's back, because if you think about it, you know this, Joel, changing a general manager now in this day and age in baseball means changing a whole philosophy, unless you're just going to move somebody up that works for him. And if you do, aren't you just getting Brian 2.0? So I just don't think they're going to make drastic moves.
Do you think the philosophy's working? Are we, to your point about 2009, are they getting further from a championship or closer to a championship?
I think the injuries take them further. I think that although they haven't been able to do it, if they started the season and everybody wasn't hurt, Loizaga didn't get hurt. That was a big, big blow for them. Cole didn't get hurt. And then the subsequent injuries, I think that they would be a team. I looked at that team and said, this team has a real good chance to win a World Series. So, when healthy, they are not moving further away. But the team that we see on the field these last 3 weeks, they're worlds away from winning a World Series. They really are. And there's a chance they won't make the playoffs either. Everybody keeps saying, well, they'll make the playoffs. Well, no, not if they keep playing like this. If they don't snap out of this, they're not going to make the playoffs. The Twins are not that far behind them. You got two teams in the West that are going to battle for that title, and maybe the other team is going to be close to a wild card. And then you got the Boston Red Sox, who've come out of nowhere. So many people said they're going to finish last in the East. Well, they're not. They might finish ahead of the Yankees. So they definitely have to make the playoffs, but they have to snap out of this in a hurry.
Absolutely agree. Let me change the subject slightly on this. Juan Soto, overall, he's been brilliant. You referenced he's in a little bit of a slide. It happens. Hal has come out and said that he wants to sign him. He said he'd try in season. Obviously, we kind of know that's not happening, but he clearly wants to bring him back. I think Hal was the guy who was responsible for making sure that Judge was back. Where do you draw the line on Soto? Is he a $500 million player? Is he a $600 million player? Do you say to yourself, if we're getting the $500 million, we could bring in Burns and Fried, or Burns, Santander, and something else for that $500 million, or that combination, that righty-lefty combination, which is, potentially an all-time combination. We better keep this together at almost any cost between Judge and Soto.
Well, I don't think that the theory of blank check applies. I don't think they're going to hand them a blank check, because if you hand Soto and Scott Boras a blank check, they're going to write a big number on it. It's not going to be like Andre Dawson. They're going to write something like $60 million a year. So I believe that I would go to $500 million for 10 years, but I think they're going to want more. I think they're going to want a 15-year deal with opt-out. So what is Hal Steinbrenner's taste for that? I would say it's 65-35 that he comes back, but I think there's a legitimate chance that he goes somewhere else. And I think it's kind of cute and adorable how people go, oh, he loves the Yankees. Well, okay, he does. I think he does. I think he legitimately loves the Yankees. He loved the Nationals. He turned down $440 million from them. So if Steve Cohen offers $60 million a year and Hal doesn't have the taste for that, you know what? He'll go to the Mets, or he'll go to the Texas Rangers, or he'll go to the Cubs, or he'll go to the Dodgers. He has Scott Boras as an agent for a reason. He's trying to get the last dollar. Now, if it's close, then I think he'll stay with the Yankees. Like if it's $1 million a year close, okay. But if it's $10 million, if it's $20 million a year, no, he's not going to do that, no matter how much he loves the fans. And it's been a love fest. It really has. I think Judge has made him feel very welcome. I think he's very welcome in that clubhouse. The fan base adores him. But blank check, I don't think that exists in this world, not with the Yankees. I don't think they operate like that.
Mike, if I were just going to go back to a moment ago when you were talking, and because I pointed this out, like last year, Brian Cashman talked about the injuries. But like if you have injury-prone players like Loaisaga and Stanton, you're going to have injuries. And just for the heck of it, the Orioles are down 3 starting pitchers and a closer, and they're in first place. And if we kind of went through the whole litany of teams, everybody's down something. The fact is the team has this is a bad sign of depth. And part of that is like Dominguez got hurt. Peraza has taken a giant step backward. Oswaldo Cabrera, who looked like kind of like an interesting multi-tool player early in his career that first year. He hasn't been the same guy since. Again, I think just overall, you sign injured players, your farm system doesn't produce all it will look like it was going to produce. This is where we are.
I agree. And so much of it unfairly falls on Stanton, because when they got Stanton, he wasn't injury prone. He got hit in the face, obviously missed a lot of time, but he's coming up with 59 home run MVP year. He's deteriorated physically. Now you can make the argument, well, the Yankees, they only play for the postseason anyway, and he's been really good in the postseason. But, getting to the postseason, that's a different story. He hurt last year's team, and he has definitely hurt this year's team. I'm surprised that he became such a factor this year, Joel. I don't think anybody expected him to be on a 35 to 40 home run pace, but he looked really good. But the guy simply can't move. He always pulls muscles.
We didn't know he'd be on that pace, but the general manager publicly said, we know he's going to get on the injured list again during the offseason. So you better build a team that could withstand it.
That's why I feel that the injury to Dominguez is the biggest injury, because that was their card to play when Stanton got hurt, because they knew he was going to get hurt. Brian said it, as you said, and ticked off Stanton's agent. But he's right. Of course he's going to get hurt. He always gets hurt. That's the type of body he has. And, the whole card that they had was the Martian. And then when he pulls the oblique and he's out for 2 months, I mean, that killed everything. John Birdie getting hurt. I know that sounds ridiculous. That hurts. I mean, they've lost really, really important people. And then on top of everything else, not just injuries, guys, the fact that LeMahieu can't hit, the fact that Volpe has gone from 290 in a short period of time down to 249, the fact that Gleyber Torres on a contract year, he has proven he's the anti-Aaron Judge. On a contract year, Aaron Judge hit 62 home runs. In a contract year, Gleyber Torres has been overwhelmed by the pressure. Those 3 guys, that's why I laugh when people say, well, Brian has to make deals. Yes, he has to make deals. But if those 3 guys don't hit, there are too many holes in the dike. You cannot make that many deals. So those guys either have to return to the mean. I'm not saying have a career year. I'm not saying win a batting title like LeMahieu did twice, but you can't be a 170 hitter. I think the bottom of the order has been ravaged by the fact that those 3 guys have stopped hitting, and add on top of the fact that Alex Verdugo has become very, very ordinary. And after Judge in the lineup, it's like, hold your breath. I am befuddled that any pitcher in their right mind pitches to Soto and Judge. I'd walk both of them all the time and then say, listen, if Verdugo beats me, if Volpe beats me, if LeMahieu beats me, I can live with it. I can't live with Soto and Judge beating me.
Yeah, I was at a game where there was the bases loaded with 2 walks to Soto and Judge, and then the Yankees got nothing. They've been struck out 3 times in a row. I'm with you on I'm glad you brought up the underperformance. I think that's actually been a bigger factor than the injuries. What would you do? We know that they're looking at pitching. They're going to try to upgrade the bullpen, as every contender does. They might even need a starter at this point. We'll see about that. But we haven't heard much talk about the infield. I mean, LeMahieu, has he got anything left, or do we have to look at the infield? Maybe somebody who can play second and third. I don't know. I've suggested Rengifo. He's now on the IL. So I don't know. My suggestions are any good. I suggested India. I mean, can they stand pat and just think that they're going to figure out a third baseman from what they've got, and that hope that Torres is going to do better? I mean, they're not replacing Volpe. And then also first base, I guess you'd be guessing whether Rice is going to continue this. But, I mean, I think Rice probably has a good chance to replace Rizzo as the first baseman. I don't know, maybe that's me. Maybe I'm crazy, but he's been pretty good, What are your thoughts on the infield?
Well, I think Birdie's going to play a big role when he comes back. He's actually a pretty good player. I don't think he's that much of a needle mover, but I think he's better than what LeMahieu has been performing. So you give LeMahieu some slack until, after the All-Star break before the trade deadline to see if he has anything left. The inside numbers on LeMahieu are very disturbing. The bat speed, the exit velocity, none of those things are measuring up. They're all in like the bottom 10 or 5% of baseball. That's not good. I think the Yankees have a really tough decision to make, a real conundrum, and I don't know what they're going to do, and I'm glad that I don't have to decide. If they are going to get a player of impact, somebody important, let's say they want to go out and they want to get Garrett Crochet, and they want to get Michael Kopech, you're going to have to part with Spencer Jones. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to do that? Because, again, he is your hold card for if the fact Soto doesn't come back, because he's going to be involved in the future outfield. Do they think he's going to be a star? Do they give up on a guy like that? The Yankees are not going to get helped out by teams because teams feel sorry for them. They're going to ask for their top prospects, and their top prospect that's available right now is Spencer Jones or Jason Dominguez. And the Yankees are in a tough spot, though, because this is the one year that they know they have Juan Soto for certain. And you got to go for it. And does going for it mean trading one of your 2 top prospects to make this team better? I don't know what the answer is. If they think that Spencer Jones is going to be as great as everybody says, I don't know if you could give him up. But can you give up on a season where this is the season that you have Soto? Tough call.
Mike, just for giggles, other teams don't think Spencer Jones is going to be all that great, just so you know.
Okay.
So I'm with you on what you said earlier, which is they've now reached the point, amazingly, from where they were a month ago, where you just can't put enough fingers in the dot. So to me, to go ahead and start willy-nilly trading your best prospects, I don't think one thing solves this. I do think this is an internal issue. And if I were trying to be encouraging at all at this moment, you think about, they went over $300 million. They made one of the biggest moves of the offseason. They have all these pedigreed players. And look at where they are. You know who I just described? The Dodgers. They have the same exact record as the Dodgers, a half-game difference. Dodgers have, hey, Tyler Glasnow got hurt. What a shock. He's like Stanton. He's obviously going to get hurt. He gets hurt every year. Yamamoto's gotten hurt. They're in the thing. They're in the NL West, and so they could win it with 88 wins. It's different. We kind of believe the Dodgers are going to figure this out. So I guess as a way of getting out of this, Mike, we've seen the high, and we've certainly in the midst of the low. Who do you think the 2024 Yankees are? Are they somewhere in between there? Are they kind of like showing us, hey, in this Frankenstein monster, this is in them? And I would be worried about even going all out when I know this could show up in October again. What do you think?
I think they're closer to the really good team than they are to this team. But those 3 guys that I mentioned, I don't know what deals they're going to make. And getting back Clark Schmidt will help a little bit because maybe that allows them to move Louis Seal into the bullpen. So you can improve the bullpen a little bit. But if those 3 guys I mentioned don't come around, if Anthony Volpe doesn't hit 275 and Verdugo doesn't wake up and Glaber and LeMahieu, then they're closer to this. So I can't really answer specifically. I'm not trying to elude or evade your question. I just don't know. because I think those guys are better than this, but how much better? So the one guy I'd say I'm not that sure about is LeMahieu. I think Verdugo can hit. He's proven he can hit. I think Volpe has shown that he can hit. I think the league has made an adjustment on him, so he has to adjust back. And Gleyber Torres, to me, I throw my hands up. I don't think he's going to be here at the end of the next year. So this is his chance right now. So you follow what Soto's doing. Soto's in a free agent year. He's putting together an MVP type season, and Gleyber Torres is just absolutely dreadful. So I think they're closer to the good team, but if those other guys don't hit, maybe they're closer to the team we're seeing now.
Mike, your broadcast partner Paul O'Neill once said something to me during the best of the years for the Yankees. He was talking about guys who were having bad years, and he said, when you win a championship, everybody had a good year. And that's when you find that guy, he had 204. But remember that game he won? And I don't know if there's a way for their great mental skills coach, who's also with the Cowboys, who always tanks, to kind of get them to a better place. But to convince them the season starts today. Everything, Aaron Boone is always saying it's still out in front of him. Well, it's still out in front of him for DJ LeMahieu, for Gleyber Torres, for Alex Verdugo, for Volpe, for Stroman, etc., for some of that, Rodon, the people who have tanked. So maybe it's out in front of them. This team has not shown over the last few years to have a strong jaw. When they get hit, they tend to stay down. We'll see.
Well, we'll see whether they're Marvis Frazier or come up with a guy, Ron Lyle, who kept getting up. I'm not quite sure.
God, we went back to when we had that house in the Hamptons watching Marvis Frazier and Ron Lyle.
I hope they're better than both of those guys. I barely remember either of them.
Ron Lyle and George Foreman, that was one of the great fights you'll ever see.
Sure. If they're Foreman, that's great, or Ali. But, I think we could live without, who'd you say, Ernie Shavers or Ron Lyle? I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what, the team that they built, they expected to be George Foreman or Mike Tyson. And right now they're not. They're just not. So I'm not quite certain which way they're going, but they're playing really poorly right now.
Well, Mike, we do appreciate. They are the story, not just of New York right now, but all of baseball, how this plummet has gone. And we knew nobody would help us sum it up and look into it with real insight like you. So as always, John and I appreciate you joining us on the show.
My pleasure. Good to see you guys.
Thanks,
and let's go back to the Hamptons.
1984. Boom.
Yep.
John and I, of course, thank our friend Michael K for joining us on the show. John, hit or error?
Well, I don't know whether it's a hit or an error. I guess you can decide this, but I'm going to say something I alluded to earlier was Pete Alonso being willing to be in the home run derby. I think that's great. He should be in the home run derby. I'd like to see Ohtani in the home run derby. I'd love to see Judge in the home run derby. I feel like the home run derby is losing its luster right now, and you don't have 3 out of the 4 guys we want to see. I'd maybe throw Stan in there if he was healthy, but and I don't really blame MLB, but I don't love it that he's on the All-Star team because he's willing to do the home run derby. I mean, I guess they felt like they had to get him in the home run derby, but I mean, Lindor and Nimmo are having better years than Pete Alonso, so it's a half a hit, half an error on both fronts, but that's where I stand.
Basketball reference to become the dunk contest, which started with David Thompson and Michael Jordan type players, Julius Erving, and now it's 4 or 5 guys I've never heard of are in the dunk contest at the All-Star game. We're kind of getting down to Alex Boehm, who's a nice player, but the home run derby for Alex Boehm. I'm with you. If it's not going to be Judge, Ohtani, that level of player, what are we doing here?
I mean, these guys are good players. They're just not really sluggers, right? I mean, even Gunnar Henderson has a lot of home runs. And Jose Ramirez has a fair number of home runs, but I mean, don't we want to see Ohtani? I'd throw Soto in there. Judge. Devers is the guy I'd like to see, and he didn't even show up. That's an error. That's not just a hit. That's an error. He's not injured. Come on, let's be real. I mean, we saw him against the Yankees. Lois saw him again last night. I mean, he's the one guy who doesn't want to be at the All-Star game. I'll give him a half a hit because I remember 15 years ago, nobody cared about the All-Star game. Now everybody but Devers, who's healthy, wants to be there. So that's a plus. That's a hit for MLB and the players who go.
John, I think mine is a hit and an error. The hit is, let's give something to the Red Sox. They're 10 games over 500 as we're speaking, 50 and 40. They're 2 games back in the loss column of the Yankees. They kind of turned the Yankee season the wrong way. That series you were at up in Fenway, the Yankees haven't recovered. The Red Sox used it to buoy it. If I was going to give an error, the great screenwriter William Goldman in his book wrote about Hollywood. Nobody knows anything about nothing about anything, right? And it's like
Right.
in the off season, we were all sure the Red Sox stink. And they got to go get starting pitching. The only starting pitcher they got was Lucas Giolito, who didn't even make it through like a week of spring training before he needed Tommy John surgery. They were certainly going to finish last. Here they are. They're in a playoff spot today, in part because their starting pitching has been so good. A bunch of like no names. Let's give Andrew Bailey some credit. Let's give Alex Cora some credit. And suddenly it does now for the team that did little and got into this space, do they keep that motif going? Or do they say we're now in it? And some of that farm system that Hein Bloom protected before he was fired, do you use that to go get a player or two and really make a run at this thing? Because, I mean, John, we've seen it. I don't know how, but some of these young players are turning, Duran,
Right.
Rafaela, some of these guys are pretty darn good.
Yeah, I mean, they can't be a seller at this point. I'd like to see them be a buyer. They are 10 games over as we do this, only 2 games behind the Yankees in the loss column and heading in the right direction. Unlike the Yankees, won't go over the Yankees right now, but it was quite an interesting offseason for the Red Sox. I'm with you. I give them credit. Breslow, Bailey, Cora. They've helped to develop these guys. Tanner Houck is exceptional. A lot of these other guys who we didn't know were real prospects have done very well. So give them all credit. It is kind of funny if you look back at their offseason, they traded Chris Sale, who's been incredible for Atlanta. They almost signed Jordan Montgomery to a multi-year big bucks contract. I think they're probably thankful they didn't do that. But it seems to have all kind of worked out in terms of the team to be 10 games over now. And I've just seen them against 2 series with the Yankees. I saw 5 out of the 6 games. And they're pretty tough. I gotta give them general credit. So hit to the Red Sox, credit to them.
Yeah, I wonder if the Yankees not only open the door to a playoff spot to them, but should they start thinking about Soto in the offseason now that they've cleared so much money and it looks like they have some interesting young players and going to be good for a while. That's for another show. For this show, as always, we thank our producers, Jake Brown and Tommy Hogan. For helping us through the show. Don't forget the New York Post Sports YouTube page. Give us a view, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us, give us a rating, drop a review. We'd love to see it. And keep sticking with us on the show with Joel, Sherman, and Jon Heyman.